Vanakkam, welcome to ART, அதாவது Avinash Ramachandran Talkies. On day 7 of my special show, 100 Days, 100 Films, we are going to look at the 2001 Tamil film, Kutty. Director Janaki Vishwanathan, in her debut film Kutty, has chosen a topic that unfortunately continues to remain pertinent in 2024 also. The film starts in a wonderfully quaint village with a very beautiful family, which unfortunately has been stricken by poverty. Nasser plays the father, and he is a potter by profession. He's not able to fend for his family, and he's forced to send his daughter to the city so that she can earn by being a house labor and ensure that the family continues to run back in the village. Of course, this scenario isn't new. We have seen innumerable films about this topic, and you almost expect very drastic things to happen when the young girl goes to the city and is working in the household of the characters played by Ramesh Arvind and Kaushalya. But there is a very nice subversion there, because the couple who play the affluent people in the urban household are not really that bad. They treat her well. They ensure that her needs are being taken care of. All good things happen till someone else enters into the picture. This film then becomes a commentary on the exploitation of child labor. It talks about how vulnerable these people are in society. It talks about how it is tough for everyone to look out for another person in the city if they don't really want to. The film also talks about the very urban nature of living, where we don't really care about what happens across the road, what happens to our neighbors. More than not caring about, I think there is a sense of ignorance that happens, because why do we have to care about something that is not happening inside our house? The film also talks about how it is not enough if one person in the house is good. It requires a village to raise a child. It requires a city to raise a village child. In Kutty, what unfolds is a very disturbing tale of child labor, and how there is no way this concept of child labor can have a good ending. Because come on, it says child labor. You cannot really defend the idea. We can't really say that you have the best interest of the child in mind. No, we just can't. But people who are sending their children to work are not doing it because they have an alternative. So Janaki, in her writing, never once blames the family for sending Kutty to this. It is a very sensitive take on what really happens when children are sent to work. It's a very sensitive take on the kind of situations they are put in. It's a very sensitive take on what can happen if things are not in order. The film has terrific performances, be it the kid who plays Kutty, Shwetha, who won the National Award for Best Child Actor, and then be it the actors like Ramesh Arvind and Kaushalya, who play the empathetic couple. Then there's Ilaiyaraaja, who plays the evil person who comes and wreaks havoc in Kutty's life. And then there's Nasser and Ishwarila, who play the doting parents. And then there is cameos by Vivek, and a lot of nice actors come together to say a very important tale. It also talks about how in such scenarios there is people who are vulnerable who manage to be support to each other. It just shows that even during adversity, good-natured people try their best to ensure that everything is in order. But is society good for such people? We know what happens to good people. We know what happens to people who are innocent. We know how people who are vulnerable, who are innocent, who are good, are being treated by today's society. It also shows how these vulnerable people who are not really poisoned by the toxicity of society manage to stand up for each other. It also shows about how there is a sense of hope that is always being crushed in them. And what happens when hope is crushed? What happens when vulnerability is exploited? What happens when exploitation becomes the norm? What happens when the people who are exploiting someone else isn't really ever being questioned by anybody in power? Is this a society where everyone can oppress anybody and then there is no repercussion whatsoever? Kutty questions all this, but never gets preachy. It never gets too in your face. The story is always focused on Kutty, and that's what makes it even more special and even more heartbreaking to know what happens towards the end. As I said, some films stay with you long after you've watched it, and I think one such film is Kutty. I still can't forget that last few minutes of the film where I think you must watch the film to know what leads to that point and what really happened in the film for me to talk about it even 23 years after its release. Oh, before I forget, the film has music by Ilaiyaraaja, and you know, he's magical. So Kutty is available on YouTube. Please do watch and let me know if you like it. And even if you don't, we know we can have this conversation. So that's it from this episode of 100 Days, 100 Films. You're watching ART, Avinash Ramachandran Talkies. Please do subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Tata.